Debora Cahn,
Daniel.
you're the creator and showrunner of Netflix's The Diplomat, about the new U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom. Now, with the show premiering its second season on October 31st, which is close to the presidential election, does making this show make you reflect differently on the real political landscape?
Uh, the real political landscape got a wee bit closer to what we were writing about than we initially anticipated. There's a lot in this season that will sound like we're making a direct comment on what's in the headlines, but it was filmed long ago. It was all filmed before Kamala Harris became the nominee. So it feels like we're skating a little bit closer to the action to the front page than we want to be. We're not trying to make a rip from the headlines show, but we a little bit did.
I mean, real politics these days is so, kind of out there that it's almost hard not to stumble on, something that ends up happening in reality.
It's true. It really is true. We want to be talking about things that people are interested in and, the kind of world that is on everybody's mind. So doing that without just imitating it is tricky.
What did you most want to accomplish going into season two from a storytelling perspective?
Season two is sort of like the gift that you get for having survived season one, where you have to set up a world and you have to set up characters and you have to hope that people are interested in it. And then you kind of get to relax into that world, into those relationships, into the characters, and live with them for a while. And also to live with the story, the plot that we put together. We wanted it to be complicated enough to be subtle, but it's complicated, and it's nice to kind of have the laying out of it done and be able to have the audience engaging on a kind of a more nuanced level with the world that we're talking about in the way that the characters are.
So you really built the whole groundwork, and now you get to play in the sandbox.
Exactly. Exactly.
And was the show production really seriously affected by the strikes? Like, at what point at the process where did those strikes happen?
Yeah, right in the middle of the process, we stopped writing when the writing strike happened, and stopped filming when the actor strike happened. And it was tough. It was a lot of people who were excited to be working who weren't working, and instead joining picket lines. And we all felt like it was a good cause, and we wanted to help however we could. But it was hard putting a lot of people out of work.
And once those were finally over, was there like a relief getting back into the writers' room and then shooting again? Like, what was that feeling?
It was great. It was a lot like it was right after COVID. I mean, it's a little bit been the story of this show from the very beginning. This was the first show that a lot of people were doing in person after COVID, and then we went away from it and came back after the strike. It makes it that, everybody's excited to come into work, which is always a good thing, and very much in touch with feeling grateful for being able to do what we do, which is, fun. We're not coal mining.
Now the show was renewed for season three, already before season two premiered. Like, does that feel like a strong vote of confidence from like Netflix in where you're taking the show?
It feels great. It is really nice to have their support, and it's really nice to know that we're telling a longer story. It changes the way that you look at the story that you're telling now if it's got a long road ahead of it. And Netflix has been great. They've been supportive of the show all along. And again, the gift of season two is like, that people didn't hate it. So you've got a little bit more of you exhale and kind of think, okay, you know, what do we want to do now that we have this sort of gift of everybody's attention for a little while?
And how far ahead do you like plan out the story? Like, do you have an end game planned out, or do you feel like this is a more open ended kind of series?
I always have an end game and then it always changes. I always want to have an idea in the back of my head. I don't want to be just driving blind, but uh, I want to be able to adjust the story for what's kind of happening on the stage, like what relationships are really thriving between these two actors, and what uh, what is the story that in the editing room tends to get shuffled aside versus where are we really wanting to spend so much time. We learned in season one that the Kate and Hal story, uh, we could just spend endless amounts of time with the two of them as a couple, and the writing in season two very much reflects that.
And that couple dynamic is really interesting. It feels like it's grown and evolved and deepened as the series has progressed, and the power dynamic is shifting, and the even our sympathy shifts back and forth between the two of them. Is it especially satisfying to write them together?
Yeah, it's great to be able to write a relationship where different people, well, the dream is that people watch and their sympathies change from, minute to minute in terms of, which side of a Kate Hal fight they think they're on. But there are certainly people who come into it thinking, I don't know how she lives with him. What is it? Why does she stay? And then there are other people who will say, she is impossible. Why does he put up with it? We really have very strong partisans in this relationship. And it's fun. It's fun seeing people really identifying with the character and also identifying with the dynamic of the frustrations and the conflicts and the petty irritations that kind of rule every day of all of our lives.
And this season you introduced Allison Janney as the vice president. Did you always have her in mind for the role and introducing her in the way you do?
Uh, the character Grace Penn felt like she was sort of in our pocket, ready to deploy um, at any moment, and we didn't want to jump into that until it was really the right thing. And I never thought we'd get Allison. I mean, I hoped, I dreamed, but I didn't think she'd actually say yes. So when she did, it was like, okay, pull out the biggest guns that we have. And there was this resource waiting there, which was the untold story of Grace Penn.
And then you have a character like Nicole Trowbridge, who has this blunt force personality that really cuts through all the diplomatic speak, and can be very abrasive. Like, what's it like writing for that character?
Well, writing for the character is really fun. I mean, he says the most outrageous things, and Rory Kinnear has this unbelievable ability to say uh, things that are outrageous or elevated or stylized or horrifying, and you still really like the guy. Like he is able to make a relatable and lovable character out of a, a really unpleasant character. So you just kind of get to take the bar higher and higher when you know you have somebody who can kill it like that.
I'd like to discuss a little bit of plot, like not getting too spoilery, but if anyone who's watching this doesn't want to know anything about the season going in, you can, pause here and go watch the show, of course. The season begins, with the aftermath of that explosion that ended season one, and Ronnie ends up, having been killed in that explosion. How did you decide to go in that direction?
From the very beginning, I wanted to tell the story of a marriage that had this kind of chasm in the middle of it, this wound that was tearing it apart, that was not infidelity. I felt like that's a story that's been told a lot on television and in film. And I just wanted to find something else that was killing a relationship. And it felt like unique to this world, to this situation where people aren't just married to each other and spending their personal life together, but are also working together in a really complicated, consequential field. There was an opportunity to tell a story about a marriage that was falling apart, about like a moral ethical choice that had been made by one of the characters that the other didn't support. And uh, we came up with this notion that Hal had made a decision that he thought was going to kind of create a road to peace in an intractable conflict, and he did something really risky, and there were consequences that he did not suffer, but people on his staff did, like young, idealistic people who would follow him into any battle, and they ended up being the ones who died on the field, not him. And Kate's uh, horror and difficulty wrestling with what that meant, and what did it say about Hal, and what did it say about the work that they were doing. So Ronnie was this character who had that kind of incredible optimism and innocence and idealism. Jess as a character just glowed. And very sadly, we wanted to take that incredible glowing energy and see what happens when somebody like that is lost, and what does it do to the family that's built around this workplace? What does it do to the relationship among the parties who may or may not be responsible? Kate always blamed Hal for having made these decisions when he was in a position of power. Now she's in that position of power, and the question is, does she still blame him? Does she blame herself? Is she more sympathetic now that she understands how that decision gets made from the inside? Or does she just hate herself as much as she hated him?
And part of that storyline, you have the Stuart character who, you go on this journey with him in the aftermath of the explosion, dealing with Kate, dealing with his injuries. What made you want to take him on that particular journey this year?
I wanted to take Kate through the experience of being in this position she'd seen Hal in and judged him in. And then I wanted her to see Stuart as the number two in the position that she was in. So she sees him judging her in the way that she judged Hal, and is able to experience, the wrestling with someone who idealized you, respected you, what happens when you've disappointed them. And for Stuart, for him to encounter, like Kate did very early in her career with Hal, uh, finding somebody who you really respect, you really want to back, you really support, you think that they're going about this in the right way, there's something of a hero worship thing going on, and then seeing them do something that you feel at the end of the day was reckless and irresponsible. Um, is that judgment fair? Is that, as Hal says, the cost of doing business? We're watching Stuart have to re-examine this institution that he's devoted his life to, and this line of work that he's not really sure he can support anymore.
And then you have this other key relationship on the show between Kate and the Foreign Secretary Dennison, which goes through rough waters, during the season and during last season as well. Their jobs kind of put them through the ringer. Has your approach to that relationship evolved as you've gotten to know Kerry Russell and David Gyasi in those roles?
Well, David Jassy has definitely had a profound influence on who Austin Dennison is, and just as Kerry did on Kate. I didn't know that the characters were going to this place, but it was like everything else. I think I had this idea that we were going to plow through stories so fast over the course of this series, and then I find myself in the writing of it more drawn to kind of smaller movements in these interactions. We're dealing with these massive world-shattering events, and trying to watch the way that they, kind of the shockwaves of those events influence the lives of these people that we care about, and the more nuanced shifts in those relationships turn out to be the thing that I'm drawn toward, and not necessarily the beginning or end of something.
I want to congratulate you on your work on the show on season 2. I look forward to people getting to see it. If when you're watching this, it might already be out. Please go watch it. And I'm looking forward, especially to season 3 as well. So thank you so much for talking with me about it.
Oh, it's great talking with you again, Daniel. Thank you.